I'm going to switch over to Sandy for a little while. Sandy, you know, I've watched you, as I said at the beginning, working with the advisory groups and some and others. But you and OBI have been engaged with the state to manage pandemics since the very beginning. What have been your priorities, and how do you think the situation is going for businesses in the state? And we're going to have a couple local business people here shortly. So
You,
yes.
you bet. Well, from the very beginning, I think all of us agreed that the top priority is keeping Oregonians healthy and managing the spread of the disease. We also realized from day one that the economic impact was going to be substantial. So we worked with leaders like the governor and you, Senator Roblan. Thank you for all you did to really step up early and say, how do we manage this? Kind of like Kurt Schrader said, we have to figure out how we're going to live with this disease long term. And I think at the front end, Oregon did some things right that other states did not do. I think the way the governor went about our closures, where instead of closing everything and picking some essential businesses to stay open, she picked a few things that closed with the inference that other businesses would stay open. So, for example, where some states shut down all manufacturing, shut down construction, we said we could do that safely in Oregon. And that, I think, really had the impact of saving some key jobs in Coos Bay and elsewhere, a huge devastation to travel and tourism as we saw, but keeping construction work going and others put us in a better position. So from our perspective, it really became, how do we help those businesses operate safely? How do we make sure that their workers know what to do, that they know what to do, and can be open and continue working? It's been an incredible evolving situation. I was really interested in the conversation around travel and tourism and people being around the state and not flying on airplanes. Well, let's think about what that means. When people aren't flying in airplanes, then the companies that fly the airplanes don't need as many parts for maintenance and they're not buying new airplanes. Well, we have industries in this state that supply airplane parts and they've done layoffs. And so we started to see those second and third level layoffs by industries, a lot of manufacturers that are really impacted by the global trends, not just Oregon. And we're concerned about what that's going to look like long term and how we'll bring those folks back to work. And the other issue I'll just mention, Arnie, quickly is as you said, the fact that the feds got out that money early was really important. I think the supports for unemployment were important to keep families alive and spending money in the economy, which is really important, and the PPP loans. That money was short-term money. It was there to help employers maintain payroll for a few months, and it's going to run out. So I'm really concerned about what happens as that federal money intended to prop up payroll, as that runs out. How many of those employers are really going to be ready to keep those jobs going, and whether we might be seeing another dip in employment as that money runs out? We're very concerned about that.
Yeah, thanks. And I think, we've got a couple of local chamber people. We can have them come up pretty soon and we'll have some conversations with them as well. But I guess the other question, you guys recently commissioned an economic study to look at the fallout from COVID-19 and the impacts of business in each sector. What did you find out? I mean, I really appreciate that you guys are actually out there doing this work.
Well, the state has provided phenomenal information, and so we built on that and other information. What we found is there really is not one industry in this state that has not been impacted, and the hits have been horrible. We saw in the numbers what we have heard, and that's that a lot of our most vulnerable neighbors have been hit the hardest. The lower income people, the hourly workers, and also communities of color have been hurt in a way that is greater than their actual numbers. For example, African Americans, Black Oregonians, make up just 2% of the workforce, but they're 3% of the unemployment applications. So that's 50% represented. So that's telling us something that we need to understand, and that the impacts of this run deep, and we need to be thinking not just about reopening, but recovery. The other thing that our economists told us is that we have to expect that this is going to be a long climb out. It's not going to be overnight. It's probably at least 3 years to climb out of this. And the virus is in charge to a large degree. People aren't confident. That consumer spending numbers we saw were low. They're not catching up. And until consumer confidence comes back and people feel good about going out, the economy's not going to be good. So they said we're basically going to be running in a 90% economy for some time, and we're going to have to figure out how to adjust for that and create support so that people can go to work and have the supports they need. And I just want to do a quick call out to something the legislature did just this last week, where you passed a bill, it was a Senate bill, that allows part-time workers to earn a little bit more from a job and still qualify for unemployment. And what was important about that is we have a whole lot of small businesses, restaurants in particular, and others who want to bring workers back, but they can't afford to bring full-time workers back yet. So they wanted to give incentive for people to come back to work and work part-time. So that bill will really be helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And so looking ahead, what do you think are the keys to a successful economic recovery? And at the same time as you're answering that question, we'll have Tim Slater and Justin come on so that we can start having a conversation with the actually right down at the local level. So
you bet. And they're great partners of ours. So I'm glad you're here. Well, first of all, we have to get through the reopening. We have to get as many people back working as quickly as we can and keep them safe. As I said, to a large degree, the virus is in charge. People have to feel confident to go back to the businesses as customers and as employees for this to work. Businesses, small businesses, and you're going to hear this from our local chambers, they need help. They need help getting PPE so their workers feel safe. They need grants to get over the hump. They need more of the federal money, the PPPs. And so there've been some great things. We hear a couple of things in particular. First of all, they're concerned about lawsuits. They're concerned about liability. And we've been advocating for some time that businesses that are doing everything right, that are following all the directions they're getting from the governor and others, should have some protection from lawsuits for a temporary amount of time so that they feel good about bringing people back. So we're looking for those kinds of protections for businesses that are trying to get reestablished. The other one I'm just going to say is basically do no harm. This is not a time for huge new regulations that are costly or new taxes. Businesses need to be able to hold on to the cash. They need to get their feet back on the ground and operate and do everything they can to, frankly, bring people back to work so that families are stable. And lastly, it is not too late to start retraining. We know there are some jobs that are lost forever, some businesses that are lost forever, and some of our most vulnerable neighbors have been hit hard. And so we need to be thinking about how do we train them, give them the tools to operate in the new jobs that will come, and so that we can all be stronger going forward.
hey, thank you, Sandy. And thanks for choosing to be on here with us tonight. We'll probably keep you on while we're talking to our guys because they're your partners on all of this stuff. So